Hello, everybody. So, some of you have asked in the comments section to give a quick update on Enphase, and Enphase is up quite a bit. If you're into stock price and you follow stock price for day to day, you're pretty happy if you bought Enphase in the 70s, which I did. I was buying in the 70s because the stock had dropped to nonsense level, nonsense type of valuation. I remember making a video 2 weeks ago. Was it 3 weeks? 3 weeks ago, saying how the present value of subsidies alone was higher than the stock price that Enphase was trading at. So Enphase was dirt cheap. The point I'm trying to make in this video really quickly is that Enphase is still dirt cheap at 120 and change. Really quickly, what is it that has changed compared to even 5 days ago when I last covered Enphase? Well, what's changed is, of course, the Powell speech on Wednesday. Powell said to the surprise of a lot of people, but not to the surprise in the sense that we knew it was coming. We just didn't know the date. But it looks like all things pass, and the Fed's madness seems to be passing. It seems like we're done with the Fed's madness. And when you look at the CME Fed Watch tool, you can see that last week, 1 week ago, we had a 40% chance of a rate cut in March. Now we are at a 62, almost 63% chance of a rate cut in March, and we may get 3 rate cuts. At least that's what the Fed's guided. Of course, when the Fed released that on Wednesday, the 10-year dropped quite a bit. It went from a 4.3% to a 3.9%. The 10-year is very important. Most of the debt instruments in the US are based on the 10-year, so that means that mortgages are at least going to drop by a point and a half, or even 2%, and personal loans too. They're going to drop quite a bit with this 10-year, and what this means is that the slowdown that we've seen in solar because of financing and because of the cost of that financing, I believe that slowdown will generally go away. 3 rate cuts is what we may have, so that means that rates in general, the prime, the top prime, the best interest rates you can get in general by the end of 2024 for personal loan should be at least 1% lower, if not more, especially as banks are now not as fearful that the rates will keep going up. So now they can more confidently lend money because they are not in the fear of having rates go up. Because what happens if you issue a loan and interest rates keep going up, the value of that loan that you've just issued goes down, right? And so you lose money on paper. That's also another thing. So more loans, in my view, are going to happen because now we know that rates are going to drop. So we're going to have more loans and we're going to have cheaper loans. This is headwinds. This is 2 big headwinds for sellers of goods like Enphase that are typically financed. And solar install on your roof in the US is about $30,000. So it's wonderful. I believe that over time, interest rates will return to pre-Fed bluff and pre-Fed madness. Why do I say what the Fed was doing with interest rates was a bluff? Why do I say it was madness? Because anybody who knows the deficit of the U.S. government, anybody who looks at those $3 trillion that are going to be issued over the next 12 months, anybody who looks at that knows that it's the Fed that's going to have to buy it. It's the Fed. It's not like we have a balanced budget. That's why it was always a bluff. Right, the key goal of the Fed was to stun inflation, to scare companies into doing mass layoffs, which many companies did. The Fed was very successful at triggering layoffs left and right. Microsoft hired 30,000 people. So many different companies did layoffs of 10, 20, 30,000 people. The Fed stunned the economy, and now they're going to go back to the normal state. And in my view, a normal state is 0%. Forever, 0% to infinity. Why? Because as long as we don't have a virtuous environment as far as the government debt goes, and as long as we don't have a virtuous financial system where we actually decide to stop growing for 30 years and start paying off our debts, until we don't have that, I think 0% is going to be the way to go. And that's what's happening in Japan. Japan has showed us the way of a 0% interest rate environment. They've had that since the early 1990s, and I believe this will be the way of the US too. But in the meantime, the payback for Enphase has kept getting better and better and better. Enphase introduced a better battery, a better management system. Today, the payback per the conference call, per battery on the call, is between 5 and 8 years. That's how long it takes for you to get your money back when you install solar. And that's solar, by the way, Enphase solar sold with a battery. What's happened compared to 3 years ago? Well, if you look at the cost compared to 3 years ago, they've gotten between 20 and 25% cheaper. That's the cost of material has gotten cheaper. Why is that? Because solar drops every year, year after year. Solar keeps dropping. Batteries too. Batteries are dropping 4x. They will likely be 4x cheaper in 2033, and they've dropped equally. And of course, batteries converge with solar. They enable solar in the era where there is the end to NEM3 type feed-in tariff, and then the cost of solar itself is also going down by 10 to 15% a year. 10 to 15% a year. Solar, the best comparison of my view, the best way to think of solar in my view is to think of solar panels like you would think of flat screen TVs. Flat screen TVs get better and cheaper every year. So do solar panels. And if I look at the prices, this is kind of my quote that I took from Tony Sebald, but I keep saying this in my video. This is why we're going to have solar panels everywhere, because solar panels are cheaper than plywood. And what's the technology that enables you to place a solar panel anywhere? Is there a tech that allows you to put a solar panel on your wall, on your balcony, on your roof, within your landscaping, on a pole? The only technology that allows you to put a solar panel everywhere without having to worry about a neat array, that's the microinverters. That's what microinverters allow you to do. Who's the leader in microinverters? By a long, long way. That's Enphase. Enphase is the leader in microinverters. And so if you look at the prices of microinverters, so I'm actually in France right now, so I can't really access a lot of websites in the US. I guess I'm going to have to buy a VPN. All of these ads we see on YouTube bothering us to get a VPN. That's pretty helpful. But I'll compare it to French prices for plywood, and you can see. So this is the cost on Alibaba right now, right? One of the featured sellers on Alibaba. This giant solar panel for 425 watts. If you buy in bulk, if you buy the biggest quantity, that's 12 cents. So that's a $51 solar panel for a very big solar panel, about the same size as a giant sheet of plywood. How much does a giant sheet of plywood cost? Well, in this time it's in France. Cost is fixed 56 euros. So 56 euros and 88 cents for plywood. So 56.88 for plywood, $51 for solar panels. Now the big advantage of solar panels compared to plywood is that solar panels, 1 year from now, it will be 15% cheaper. Plywood, it's a commodity. It's supply and demand. It's up and down. It depends. But technically, commodity, typically, they don't experience the cost declines that technology experiences. That's why solar panels are dirt cheap at $51 for a giant one. China is dumping solar panels. These solar panels, if you want to make money out of them, if you want to get free power, free electricity, you got to have a microinverter behind them. It's the easiest way to do it. It's the easiest way to turn your house into an energy independent factory. And by the way, you may say, oh, but I'm not going to buy something on Alibaba. I'm going to use another European example because, again, I don't have access to many US websites right now. But if I use another US example, you can see this is in France. You can get this ordered, one giant solar panel, 79 euros for one giant solar panel. So $51, 71 euros, so 79 euros. Not even that much of a difference for a giant panel. And they sell 5 or 6 kilowatt kits for do-it-yourselfer for like $1,500 if you do it yourself. So what that means is that the cost of solar is going to keep going down. Of course, the cost of labor, right? Your contractors that get on the roof, getting on the roof is an annoying job. A lot of people don't want to do this. So the cost of labor is gonna stay up, and it may even go up a little bit. But the cost of the component, the cost of what you actually put on the roof is going to keep going down. And most of the value, in my view, is accruing to the microinverter. That's where most of the value, I should note that a microinverter is almost twice as expensive as a solar panel, right? Microinverter is the tech where all of the profits go. That's why if you look at Enphase, 49% gross margin is what they get. And next quarter with the IRA and with all of the money they're going to make for IRA, remember, they get 13 cents per watt on the IRA. They're gonna get into margins well into the 50% gross margin on a microinverter, right? And this keeps, if this keeps going, and if they keep expanding their scale and they keep moving again their production to the US, shutting down the production outside of the US, if they move all of the production to the US, you could get into gross margin of 60% on microinverters. In that case, you're getting a company that has software-like margins on a hardware product and on a product that is in very, very, very high demand, because whenever someone buys a solar panel, they gotta put an inverter behind it, and they could go the old, more complicated route of a string inverter, or they could go the easy route of just plugging a tiny inverter behind the panel. To me, my bet is that solar for residential, which is the biggest market, right? Residential is the biggest market for solar. When it comes to residential solar, my bet is that most people are going to opt for a microinverter. And of course, there's a little bit of competition in microinverters. You have a lot of unproven Chinese brands. You have oil miles, but they're not as famous, they're not as recognized as Enphase. And they also don't have the software, don't have the microgrid, don't have the connections of working with the batteries, don't have the customer service, the customer support that Enphase has created over the years. So that's why I'm more bullish than ever on Enphase. When I look at the stock price, I see the price right now, if you look at after hours, we're Saturday, of course, so it's not open today, but $125 is what it closed yesterday at the end of after hours trading. $125. Is it expensive? Is it cheap? I find it very cheap. But then again, I was finding Enphase cheap at $180, right? So $125, to me, this is still a gift. And my buys and my allocation to Enphase have not changed. I keep allocating to Enphase. So now that the stock bounced back barely, but just a little bit it bounced back, now if you look at the total returns ever since this company was public, so almost 12 years return, despite the huge depression in the stock price, you're still at 27% year-over-year return. Is Enphase a stock that should be $400 right now? Surely feels like it. It surely feels like the stock should be closer to $400 if you look at the valuation compared to the potential of this company. This company has a tremendous potential. Think about just the net present value of how much cash they're gonna get from the IRA. Direct pay, as Mandy says on the call, direct pay. The IRS pays, sends a check. That's wonderful. So, I've said this before, but repetition, I suppose, is key to learning. And I've said all of this in my prior video on Enphase, but I'll quickly cover it again. The subsidies are here until 2035. They get reduced a little bit in 2033, but the subsidies are here until 2035. We don't know if they're going to expand them. They could. Or they could end them sooner, as some claim. But it was passed with the free houses of the U.S., and I doubt it's going to change. Even if Republicans come into power in 2024, I doubt it's going to change. It's been passed. And you may say, oh, Republicans don't want to finance things like solar, but they love manufacturing. And it's a manufacturing subsidy, and they love manufacturing. And I would argue both sides of the aisle love manufacturing. So I don't think that subsidy is going away. I know this is a common thing in the comment section that says, oh, what if they take it out? I don't think we're going to take it out because this is mostly a manufacturing subsidy, right? The $7,500 you get when you set it up as a customer, and then the cents, the 13 cents per watt that you get, that's all going towards manufacturing, and so both parties love that. Everybody loves manufacturing. What governor doesn't like to see a new factory in their state? They all love it. Let's not forget about the 1 billion share buyback program, and I sure hope they spent a lot of it in the 70s, in the $70, like I was buying, like many of us were buying the $70. I hope they spent a lot of money in the $70 range. We'll see. I usually don't like buybacks, but that stock got so cheap. That's what they want to do. I think it's a secondary use of capital. I would rather see them invest that money in marketing, but they chose buyback, and I'll take it. It's better than burning the money on an acquisition that's not a very good fit. Acquisitions often fail. Buybacks, you're buying yourself, right? Energy is everything. Everything in the economy is based on energy. Remember my videos that I've made about 2030 and about convergence and about what it's going to mean to have abundant energy on your house, what it's going to mean to have 7 to 9 times more power than you need in your house. You disrupt heating in the winter because heating goes on heat pumps or goes electric. So you disrupt gas. You don't have gas service anymore, right? You just use a heat pump. And you may say, oh, gas is cheap, but all of these utilities, the problem is that you have a service fee, and utility districts increase the service fees all the time, and you end up in odd situations often where you have a utility bill, the service fee is more expensive, just the right to buy from the company is more expensive than what you end up buying in power. Cheap, inexpensive power, right, that you get from your solar panel also mean free water. And I know probably not a lot of people say that, but there's already devices that exist. They're called air-to-water generators, and in your AC unit outside, you have an AC unit to cool your home. Next to your AC unit, it's very easy to imagine a water generator that generates 200 gallons a day and just generates water with electricity. This abundant electricity unlocks so much. It unlocks computing power. It unlocks doing some computations on your Tesla and reselling that computing power to Tesla or to AWS. It involves so many things to have this cheap energy. You could grow your own food. You could have food growing appliances. Energy underlies everything we do in the economy. And there's going to be many, many more uses than just reselling that electricity to the utilities. There's going to be much more than that, right? They focus on residential solar. Residential solar is the biggest market. And residential solar is more important because while string inverters work well, I would argue, for commercial installs, where, if you're going to put solar panels entirely on your whole building all at once, you can calibrate the right string inverters. But if you're residential solar, let's say you have 4 sides of your roof, you might install the whole setup across a 15-year period 3 different times, right, at 3 different points. And then in that case, Enphase is a much better system because one panel, one microinverter, and it's simple. It's simple to install. I think microinverters also, they're going to be all over in Enphase products. Every Enphase product is going to have a microinverter. And of course, we're getting into bidirectional charging. That's going to be 6 microinverters. We're getting into batteries. That's going to be 6 microinverters again. And they converge with other things like utilities and electric cars, right? Your roof is more than just generating your electricity and your heat. Your roof will generate transportation, and you'll charge your car with your roof. It's just very logical. And to me, the convergence between solar and electric go hand in hand. And it's worth mentioning, and I'll say this one last time because I say this all the time in my videos. I love Tesla. Tesla's my number one position. Tesla's the best at so many of the things they do, and they're definitely the best in batteries too. At home batteries, the Tesla Powerwall is a much better product than Enphase's products right now. The Tesla Powerwall is insanely great. But the truth is, if you look at what's happening, they pair the Tesla Powerwall with Enphase products, right? Microinverters, you can pair with a Tesla Powerwall, right? Buyers don't have to buy a Tesla Powerwall. They could buy an Enphase Powerwall. Another thing that's going to happen with the Powerwalls and with the battery backup systems is I see no reason why everybody would use the same brand. You're going to have multiple ways to store energy at your home. You're not necessarily going to buy 3 Enphase batteries all at once. You might have an older Powerwall that you first got when you got interested into energy independence, and then you might have an Enphase battery that you bought later on when you got Enphase on your roof, right? And then maybe you buy a cheap battery that you got on eBay. It's a good sell. Right, one of these EG4 batteries that are very popular on YouTube. Look at the channels. If you look up EG4 on YouTube, you have channels with hundreds of thousands of followers, with people setting up these battery racks, these server racks with these EG4 batteries that are very inexpensive, and so you can have a battery like that. It's the whole mix and match possibility. To me, is what's going to happen with energy. Just like if you have a kitchen. You might not have all of the appliances from the same brand. You mix and match. Well, the same, in my view, is going to be true for Enphase. It's better at first if you have everything Enphase or everything Tesla or everything one brand. But the way these setups work is that you don't always have the same brand. If you look at an electric system, you don't always have the same brand. And I believe compatibility is here for Enphase's product, and it will be key. And Enphase is winning in the residential solar market where Tesla is not. Tesla's SolarCity acquisition was not really good, and Tesla's solar residential market is not doing too well. They're not being too successful, and the reason for that, of course, is because they have limited attentional resources. Their attention, they're spending on the Model 2, the next generation Tesla. They're spending on the Cybertruck. As a CEO, you can't do it all. You can't spread your attention too thin. Enphase is razor focused on microinverters and on that technology. So anyways, not many updates in this video, aside from telling you that I think solar will get back to the levels of 2021. As soon as interest rates will go down, we will see solar, in my view, get back to the levels of 2021, and there will be a world, in my view, where you take a walk in the neighborhood and 80 to 90% of the roofs that you see when you take a walk through your neighborhood, these roofs will have solar on the roof, and a good chunk of them will have a microinverter below each solar panel because it is a very compelling technology, and I've spent hours discussing this on this channel in various videos. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This was more of a celebratory video, and I'm happy the stock's back. This is just entertainment, no investment advice. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing, and have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful holiday vacation if you're on holidays. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.